check one. I think it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, let's roll the intro.
And we are calling it iPhone.
Base model will do 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds.
As a kind of Apollo program effort for artificial intelligence.
Welcome to Tech Savvy. I'm Mirantha Jayatilaka.
I'm CD Athuraliya.
So this is the first episode of Tech Savvy that we are doing. Actually, this is more or less like a figuring out episode of what Tech Savvy is going to be, I think. So before that, I think we'll just introduce ourselves a bit. CD, why don't you go first?
I'm a co-founder at an AI startup as well as a research fellow at a non-profit research organization. Yeah.
Okay. So I call myself a tech researcher and also a tech enthusiast. I think that qualifies me to be in this podcast.
Hopefully me too.
All right. That's enough about us. I think throughout this podcast, we'll be more or less talking about our experiences and our background. As listeners, you'll get to know us if you listen to us throughout the podcast.
Yep. The next is how we met, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Just more than 1 year, no? Just little more than 1 year.
1 year.
Because we met at Disrupt Asia last year.
2017, that is.
Yeah. So Disrupt Asia, if some of you might have heard, Disrupt Asia is a exhibition. They
call it startup conference.
Startup conference. Yeah. So we were there at 2 stalls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Next to each other.
And you were at DataCon, right?
Yes. So to build the setting, I think in 2016 I started my first tech startup. It was called DataCon. We were focusing on building an industrial IoT application, like a solution. So yeah, that's how we met.
They were there with a very cool gadget, which I didn't understand. But yeah, they were at DataCon, and myself and my colleague were at Conscient AI. So I think we were just discussing some of the things, and we were just introduced.
Yeah, I think we were talking to many people there, and between we got some free time. Then we got into chatting and like getting to know.
Yeah,
and then I think I talked to you about how we can involve data science in what we were doing.
Yeah. So I was thinking, yes, we got some early clients.
Was that what you were thinking? Really? I thought you were like, oh my God, he's going to be such a trouble.
It was, I think, a mix of it, because that's how at least it'll end up one way or another. So, and also you took my flash drive, right?
Oh God. We're going to mention that.
So what happens with flash drive, they vanish. So somebody asks for it for, let's say, 1 hour or maybe for a short period, it's gone.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, you took it and returned it as it was, maybe after 6 months.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It was with me for a long time.
Yeah, like we were totally strangers, but I cannot even remember how we met again. It was at...
I think we attended this event.
The startup event?
At 99X.
Okay.
And that's...
No, it was Startup X Foundry.
Yeah. Startup X Foundry.
Yeah.
And somehow I got to know that you are also coming.
Yeah.
And I remembered the flash drive as well. And then I just mentioned, okay, I'll just bring the flash drive as well.
So, story in short, it was perfectly there. I think it's very surprising, to be honest, at least to me. Yeah. So, that's how we met. And
it was weird like that.
And I think then we met quite a few times after that at startup events, tech events.
Yes. So I think we clicked where we had a common interest in AI, I think, by that time. You've been having the focus on AI and machine learning for a while. But I think coming back to where in that first startup conference, I talked to you about having data science in my IoT solution. That was the time that I was thinking about how data science can be a part of what I do, That was my transition period actually. And after I talked with you, I actually did my own self-research. And the next time I think I met you, I have done a bit of, not actually a bit of, I've done a considerable amount of self-research.
Yeah. I would say that's a pretty good work.
That's where we clicked.
Yeah, maybe.
And then, Sachin.
Sachin happened. So
I think we should introduce Sachin.
Yes.
You do it.
Okay. So no, actually, I didn't
okay,
know.
Interesting story. Okay, this is the story. So I'm actually a part of the Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka. Okay, so I get this email from IESL. It actually said there's going to be a lecture on AI and machine learning, and it's going to be done by a person called Dr. Sachin Abevira.
Shit.
I'm sorry, Sachin. If you are listening to this, we are sorry. We have forgotten your last name, but
okay.
Yeah. So Sachin, CD find it out. Sachin Abevardhana, check him out. He's on Twitter, and he does an interesting thing.
He's doing deeplearning.io. Sorry, deeplearningschool.io. I think. Yeah.
So he has
or
a lot of
deepschool.io.
Yeah.
We should
Once
probably
again.
correct this.
It's going to be a disgrace otherwise.
Yeah. So as you can understand, like we haven't done any proper research or we haven't scripted this, so it'll be like this. Yeah, go on.
So anyway, so when I saw this email, my first thought was, oh my god, I want to go and check this out because it's looked really interesting, and it mentioned that he has this GitHub repo that he developed as sort of like a guide for beginners who are interested in AI, and it had got like 2,000 GitHub stars. That was the catchy part about it. And then I was like, okay, after work I'm going to go and attend this lecture, and then I attended it, and he was a pretty cool guy. I mean, during his talk, I think in that audience, majority of that audience didn't get what he was talking about, but I was sitting right at the back, and I was like, oh my god, this person is so cool. Yeah,
I don't think it's Sachin's fault by any means. Like what you just mentioned, the audience didn't get what he was saying. I think there's a gap between the understanding of these concepts.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And this is exactly one point that we are going to talk about in this podcast. This gap.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we have to note that down.
Yes.
Anyways. So what I did was, after his talk, I actually stayed back and I wanted to talk to him. I got to know him, I got his contacts, and I was like, it would be really cool to just meet up with this person after by the way, he lives in Australia, so he has like come for a very short period of time to Sri Lanka. So I was like, it would be pretty cool to have a meet up with him afterwards. And then when I came home, I was like, okay, by that time I knew you. And then I messaged you saying, here I met this really cool person called Sachin. Why don't we meet up with him, and I want you to join?
Yes. I think I also saw the poster of that event. For some reason, I couldn't be there, but I still wanted to meet him because one of the problems we have at the moment is especially in AI and machine learning, we don't have enough experts in Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
There are many Sri Lankans all around the world, but in Sri Lanka, there are not. So, unfortunately. So I think I desperately wanted to meet him, and that's how we met, I think.
Exactly. And like with encounters like that, I think we sort of started working in more and more common paths. And then like several other things happened, and then here we are doing a podcast about tech.
Then I think shall we continue with the what we did with Sachin, the research paper discussion?
Exactly,
Okay.
So that'd be pretty cool,
So I also founded the first machine intelligence meetup in Sri Lanka back in 2015 because I could see there's a huge gap between what is going on outside and what we are doing. So mainly on the research side and the understanding we have about certain concepts.
CD, when was this? What was the year that you started the meetup?
It was 2015.
2015. Okay.
Yeah. Back then, actually, it was not a buzzword like this, but it was just coming up.
Yeah.
Mainly in Sri Lanka.
I think back then we were more I mean, at least people who were in research, the buzzwords were digital image processing and stuff like that, I think. Machine vision.
Yeah, machine vision, machine learning,
Yeah.
things like that. AI became more popular after that with
Yeah.
science fiction and all the
Exactly.
media
Yeah.
attention and
Yeah.
everything like that. So there was a huge gap. So I first wanted to create a community around machine learning, because one of the things I noticed was there are people who are really good at this and working on different interesting problems.
Yeah.
But the problem was they were working in isolation. So it's much better if you have some colleague from your neighborhood or maybe from your workplace
Yeah.
working on the same problem as you are doing.
Yeah.
But you don't know each other in a way that you don't know that both of you are working in the same field.
Exactly.
Because you might not be working on that at your workplace.
Yeah.
You are doing it as a hobby project or something.
Yeah.
So I first want to connect these people, and I also need to mention the team I had back then, because I couldn't, of course, I couldn't do it all by myself.
Yeah.
So what I did was I gathered a small team, which I found through a Google form.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which is again I think interesting, but maybe later I'll tell more about that. So what happened was we started this meetup and started doing and experimenting different types of sessions. Basically, there were like mostly still it was talks from interesting people, and as I said, since there were not many experts in Sri Lanka, we were trying to get people like Sachin when they were visiting Sri Lanka for a shorter period. We tried to adjust and do sessions when they are here.
Yeah.
So that's how we managed to host like some of the world-class experts, Sri Lankans and also foreigners.
Yeah.
So when Sachin was here, we were planning to do a research paper discussion.
Yeah. On GAN.
On generative adversarial networks, which is a very popular topic these days, if you've been following machine learning. So the reason we thought of doing a research paper discussion is again the gap.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the main parts of this podcast as well. We are thinking of discussing these things because what we see is, especially in AI, it's a lot of buzzwords, but keep repeating these buzzwords won't make the actual progress.
I think overall in tech, this culture is there. I think that's how, I mean, whatever Apple is doing, whatever Amazon is doing, whatever Google is doing, seem to become like a buzzword and seem to be like an industry, trend. If I'm not wrong.
There's a lot of media hype and attention because of some of the cool things machine learning can do, and mainly recently. But I don't think if we keep repeating, if we keep sharing these things. So for an example, what I see is on social media, a lot of people keep sharing how Google Assistant, how cool that is. And people,
you're talking about the duplex.
the WaveNet and all that. But we should. So let me repeat something I told in a recent panel discussion. So Yoshua Bengio, one of the pillars of deep learning, recent deep learning. So he has said in a recent interview. Originally it was in French. Luckily, I have some friend who can translate in between. So what he has basically said is that Canada as a country shouldn't be a consumer of AI. Rather, it should be a creator of AI.
Right.
You get the idea, right? Because as long as we become consumers, we are depending on someone else.
Right.
We are fully depending, and they are getting the full advantage of it. Right. They are always selling, or they are always like giving us. We are just waiting, and we are just consuming it. So Yoshua has said that as a country, Canada shouldn't be a consumer. It should be a creator of AI.
Okay.
I think that should be the vision for every country.
Exactly.
And my argument for that is AI is so powerful that it shouldn't be concentrated in one part of the world.
Can this be applicable in not just AI, maybe in tech, in overall tech? Because if you look, the powerhouse, the tech powerhouse in the world at the moment is US, but China is almost there.
I'm actually not sure whether it is China or US. We don't have facts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is debatable. Let's say US and China both, right? So prominently these two nations are like the creators of tech.
Pretty much every technology, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the what you mentioned, like Canada should be a creator of tech, not just a consumer of tech. I mean, I'm sorry, you mentioned Canada should be a creator of AI, not just a consumer of AI. That word AI, I think, is interchangeable with the general idea of tech for every country, I think. I think that's the idea.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think Canada has every right to say that, because I'm not sure whether you have heard, like, there's something called deep learning mafia.
All right.
Which is, if I remember correctly, it's Geoffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, and Yann LeCun.
Okay.
So these three and their students, postdocs, I think that is what called as deep learning. Canadian deep learning mafia.
Okay.
So basically, I think what you said on, like, that we can replace AI with any technology is totally true.
Yeah, I mean, in the sentence, we can say any country should be a creator of tech rather than just a consumer of tech. I think that's looking at the world right now, how the big nations, what we mentioned, how their economies and how their entire culture is driven by this thing called tech, and like the whole movement around it. I think that's what we can take from that.
Yeah, but on the other hand, what I think is AI is, at least I'll be a lot more biased towards AI, of course. But so what I think is that compared to the other technologies, AI can be far more powerful. And as I said, since it can be far more powerful, it shouldn't be concentrated in one part of the world.
Correct.
So if you've been following what is happening around, now there are topics such as like AI policy, diversity in AI,
Correct.
AI ethics, things like that.
Yeah.
And how to use AI in military, things like that. So it can be very powerful as well as very dangerous. But so that is one of the reasons that it should be everywhere.
Correct.
Every country should have some knowledge, some understanding about it. Because very soon AI will be in the policy, in the government.
Yeah.
So if we are talking about a black box and we don't understand what is going on, for an example, let's think, I don't know when this will happen. Let's imagine that our government buys some cool AI from some other developed country, a creator of AI.
Yeah.
But we don't understand anything about what is going on.
Yeah, correct.
So that is not good, because it can be very dangerous.
I think the idea comes around where we talk about the decentralization of power, of technology. I think it has been a big topic in the world of tech. I think that this decentralization, the idea of decentralization, is what you're talking about. And if I can mention,
I think the correct word is democratization. Yeah. It is more like the democratizing technology. AI. So everyone has some access, some control,
knowledge. I think now I got to know most of these concepts regarding AI and machine learning, deep learning, from this online resource, especially the Andrew Ng's course on Coursera, the deeplearning.ai. And
I think it's Andrew Ng or something.
Exactly.
I don't know. Anyway.
So there also he mentions, I think, the one of the reasons why he did a course like that, introductory course like that, was for the reason that he wanted more people to get access to these resources, more people to get the knowledge of how this big thing that we call AI works. So when you have that knowledge, when you have that intuition, I think you look at it in a different perspective where it can be, like you said, a democratization of the knowledge, of the tech, of the power.
And there's a very famous quote by him, Andrew, which is like, AI is the new electricity. Yeah. So getting back to my initial argument, which is so one thing we need to be aware of AI, and we should be creators of AI, is it's going to be powerful. It's going to be everywhere. The
Yeah.
other reason is, compared to other technologies we have around, the initial investment or the capital you need to do AI or create experiment in AI is very low compared
Correct.
to the other things.
Correct.
Like
Like
talk
hardware.
about talk about
Exactly.
your experience.
I think I have a lot to share regarding that because as I said, during like my work deviated from hardware to software, like computer science, and what even with my startup, my previous startup, it was prominently a hardware startup, and it was really hard for us to scale because of that. Because as a startup, you don't have a lot of funds, and doing hardware, it's like every step you take, you have to build a new part, or like even the product, you have to build the product every time you are going to apply it to any solution. But in software, it's not like that. You build the product once and then you just scale it. Then more and more users, you don't have to build another software. It's just scalable. So you get the idea.
Yeah. So, but in AI, you don't need such resources.
Exactly.
If you have like at least as an entry point now, there are like resources like Google Colab where you don't need anything. You only need maybe a dumb terminal and a good internet connection.
Exactly.
But even if you are going to do some reasonable amount of work, only thing you might need is a reasonably good GPU. So with that, you can do a lot more than you imagine.
Yeah.
So those are the reason that we should be doing more in this.
Exactly.
So to do that, the first thing we want to try out is connecting people and build a community around.
Right.
Because what we have seen is like all around the world, first thing you need to have is people talking.
Yeah.
Interacting with each other. That's how ideas emerge. That's how things happen.
Correct.
And once you have people talking, new things will pop up, hopefully. Can be startups, it can be research, it can be new products, it can be services. So that's how things happen. So we build this community, which is, I think it's at least for me and few others, I think that community brought us together in some ways.
True.
And there are people who have like become knowledgeable through that community and shared their work.
Yeah.
And so back to Sachin.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at the path that we have.
we went a long down the way. So when Sachin was here, we were planning to do a research paper discussion.
Yeah.
Because that is also, the event itself was an experiment. We wanted to try out whether we can do something like this in Sri Lanka. Because I have some experience from some conferences where I saw how they interact with each other, how they share ideas. So I wanted to try out that here in Sri Lanka, whether it is possible in the first place. So again, what we lacked was expertise, because you cannot do something like a research paper discussion unless you have at least two knowledgeable people. Luckily, we had few, and also we could get Sachin into that.
Yeah.
So that's how I think.
That's how we met. So we were on that question, CD, if you remember.
It's a part of that question, that answer to that question. I think that event was also somewhat. I think it went well. We could share.
It went great.
Yeah. And it was beyond expectation to me, at least, because there were people, even someone like you. I don't think you had a lot of experience.
No, back then, no.
Yeah, back then. But you have read the paper and you
Exactly.
contribute to the discussion. So that's what we wanted to see.
Yeah.
Because I personally think that research is so much important
Correct.
to become creators of any technology.
Correct.
Otherwise, we'll be just consumers, which is not good at all.
I think we cracked the introduction to this podcast by that. That one point, at least, in the introduction should be, we are not going to talk about consuming tech. We are mostly going to talk about the entire idea of creation of tech.
So
that'll be one part of it.
One thing we need to promote is, for an example, like I think again, another thing we should probably discuss is how we came up with the idea of doing a podcast.
Exactly.
I think
Shall we come to that question now? I think that was our next question that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Why are we doing a podcast?
Yes.
And why we chose a podcast?
So I was actually not sure about the channel we should be communicating.
Yeah.
I think it's more about you, Mirante. But I definitely had something to tell to everyone, because I saw there are some reasonably big issues in what we are seeing around. Because, for an example, the same thing we've been discussing. We see a lot of buzzwords, but not enough progress, actual progress. And
correct.
we wanted to break that. That's what we've been trying to do with different type of events, experiments, and things like that. So I want to take this message out there. Hopefully there'll be listeners.
To all the 5 of you who is listening to this, shout out to you.
So I wanted to take this message and tell that this is how certain things happen in other parts of the world. This is how we should be trying. I'm not saying I'm an expert or I'm knowledgeable enough, but at least I have a little bit of experience, I guess. I have noticed certain things. And always there'll be beginners.
Exactly. I mean, I want this to be like a journey of learning, if I'm not wrong, because I think in tech, especially in tech, you can't survive unless you are constantly learning. I mean, that's one. I think that's the most important skill you should have right now. Not the proficiency in some software or some programming language. I think the best skill to have is the skill of learning and quick learning.
Because tools and technology, they come and go. But if you can learn continuously, you can survive.
Exactly. So I think the podcast will also be like especially like us learning to how to get this message through, and then also just figure things out. I don't know,
So we'll be, I think, talking about the problems and the answers. In our opinion, what are the best answers? It may not be like the most correct answer, but we'll be like figuring out, and hopefully you will come into the discussion at some point.
Exactly. So the listeners, if whoever is listening, you can like drop us questions or like your ideas, your opinions. We would like to hear your feedback. And shall we have like a Twitter handle, like a hashtag or something that people could reach to us?
Sure.
I haven't thought this through, right?
No.
We haven't like thought of any social media yet for this.
No.
I think we can have, the easiest thing to have is like a hashtag, I think.
Hopefully something unique.
I think you can reach to us in any way possible. Maybe use the hashtag. We just came up with a hashtag, hashtag Tech Savvy Podcast. But you don't have to like stick to that if you don't like it. I mean, I don't know. We might come up with a different way of having this communication with the listeners later on. But as you see, we don't have any script or like any plan for this. So maybe we'll mention like a proper way, like a proper platform later on. But for now, you can use the hashtag Tech Savvy Podcast, or else you can just reach to us in like personally.
Facebook. If you can find us on any social media platform,
please find us.
Yes. But again, I think we should mention the platforms we'll be publishing, right?
Right, correct. We are doing this podcast on Anchor. Anchor is a platform where you can easily record and upload your podcast to multiple podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, many other like different podcast platforms that you can find. And Anchor is a great software, and we are using Anchor. So you can listen to this on Anchor as well if you have the Anchor app. And also we'll be uploading this to YouTube, because I feel like most of the people around here are used to YouTube more than any podcast platform. Is that it for the first episode?
I think we can conclude.
I think we are out of time.
By saying that it'll be, at least from my end, it'll be the, I think what people say is the intersection of two topics, which is like, so in my case, it should be like intersection of startups and AI, but I think it should be if you remember your set theory, it should be the union. Because when you say intersection, it's only the overlap of two things. But I'll be hopefully talking about the union. Where it can be only AI, it can be only startups, also it can be both.
Right.
So that would be the main contribution from my end. But I
think we'll have a like AI, because we talk about AI because that's what we are like a part of at the moment. Like
very much interested in.
Exactly. But like the name of the podcast says, we are just tech savvy. So
Exactly.
it will be about an overall look on tech. But like we mentioned in the beginning, it will be a deeper and a different
Look at
on
technology.
tech.
Yes. So basically, but again, one thing I want to mention is like we are into phones and all the devices. We like them. We follow some of these things, and we are not like against them or anything.
Yeah.
We will be talking about these things as well once if it becomes relevant to what we are discussing. But basically, we won't be doing like the direct device reviews or anything like that.
Yeah.
We need to discuss some of the problems, solutions we think that are feasible, and our opinions, of course, about them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
that's it.
Yeah, for
today.
Shit,
we forgot the announcement.
What?
About the event.
Okay, I'll be talking at an event on October 19th. It's a meetup event. It is announced. If you
It is the meetup that we were talking about just now.
Yeah. But this time we are doing it in collaboration with IBM.
Oh, nice.
IBM Sri Lanka. It will be happening at IBM Sri Lanka. I cannot remember the exact topic. It's something called real world opportunities, blah 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 on AI. So if you're interested, drop by.
Yeah, and let us know if you have heard the podcast.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we'd like to know. Great. And thank you very much for anyone who is still listening to us. Thanks for sticking around. We hope to improve on this. Like this is our first experience of doing something like this, so hopefully we can learn and improve on this.
Yeah, we really value your feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.